Hi everyone, my name is Mrs. McCullough, if you didn't know that already. We're going to spend some time doing some enrichment assignments today. This is going to be for lesson 4.13, so be sure to have your pencil and your notebook so that you can take notes as we move through the video. So here are your steps for the math enrichment assignment. For semester 1, you'll see that there are 2 assignments that you'll complete for enrichments, and then the same is true for semester 2. So these are the directions that you will do. The first thing you want to do is watch the enrichment video, which is what you're doing right now. While you're watching this video, be sure to take good notes on the video so that you can use them on your semester exam. But it's also important to write down what I'm doing through as you watch the video, because you will see questions from this video as part of your online assignment. Once you've watched the video, be sure to complete the online assignment using this link. I'll show this link again at the very end of the video so that you have it, but if you want to pause the screen to write down that hyperlink, feel free to do that. And as always, call, email, or text me with any questions. All right, let's look at this one and see what we do. So if you want to look at 12, you can write this down or you can copy it on that worksheet. Solve the equation to find the value of t. All right, so there's a couple of things here I want you to see. I'm going to write that fraction out over here. T over 2 equals 12 over 8. When I look at this problem, there's a couple of things that I notice. The first thing that you should notice is that you have a fraction and you have another fraction. And you should also see that they are set equal to each other. And that tells you, if they're equal to each other, that they're equivalent. So you may want to write this in your notes, the word equivalent. And equivalent means equal. So whenever we see two fractions equal to each other, we know that we're multiplying or dividing both the numerator and the denominator by the same number to get our new fraction. So we're going to look at that and we're going to see a pattern. So let's look at it. If we look at it from this fraction to this fraction, we can see that we're going to do 2 times 4 to get us the 8. But what if we looked at it backwards? What would it be if we started at the 8 and we went backwards? If we went backwards, it would be like 8 divided by what gives me 2. And we can see that that's a 4. So you can see in both examples that we're either multiplying by 4 to get our new fraction, our equivalent fraction, or we're dividing by 4 to get our reduced fraction. So now let's look at the numerator, which is the top. If we look at the top, we're saying t times 4 is going to give me 12. We have to keep that same pattern like we did on the bottom. Well, if we think about that, what times 4 is going to give me 12? Well, that tells me 3. T has to be 3. Now, if that was confusing, let's look at it the other way. Let's say we're starting at the 12 and we're going to the t. Remember, if we're starting with the bigger fraction and we know that we're starting with the 12, which we know it's bigger because the 8 was bigger than the 2 in the denominator. So if we start with the 12 and we divide 4, we get 3. And that was our answer. So this one shows us that t has to be equal to 3. All right, question 13 says a baseball pitcher won 75% of the games he pitched. If he pitched 84 ball games, how many games did he win? So it's important we start this and we look at it and we highlight or we circle anything that we might be using for this problem to help us figure it out. When I'm looking at this, I see that the baseball pitcher won 75% of the games that he pitched. If he pitched 84 games, how many did he win? Well, there's a couple of things here that I'm going to share with you. First thing I want to see is I see the word of. And I don't know if you know this or not, but anytime you see the word of in math, it usually means to multiply. So when I look at this, it's saying that he won 75% of the games that he pitched, of all the games.
So now I'm going to dissect this and I'm going to write it out. Well, I know I can't just write 75% out. I have to change that to a decimal. So to make that a decimal, I take my percentage and I put it over 100. Now, why do we put it over 100? That's because when we're dealing with percentages, the bottom or the denominator should always be out of 100%. That's how much we have, 100% of something. Now, we know that there's a trick here. Dividing by 100 is the same thing as taking your decimal and moving it 2 places to the left. So this is like 0.75. All right, now we just talked about the word of. Remember in math, of means to multiply. And then when I look, how many games did he actually pitch? Well, he pitched a total of 84 games. So now I have 0.75 times 84. All right, so I have 0.75 times 84. Now I need to go through and I need to multiply that. So let's practice our multiplication. I'm going to do 75 times 84. And when I do that, what am I going to get? Well, 5 times 4 is 20, carry the 2. 4 times 7 is 28, plus 2 is 30. Then I add a 0 for my place value, and now I'm going to the 8. 8 times 5 is 40, carry the 4. 8 times 7 is 56. Now add 4, which is 60. All right, I'm running out of space, so I'm going to have to write it over here. I'm going to add. And I get this. Now I have to move my decimal. Remember, you have to move your decimal. So if your decimal is 2 places over, you're going to start at the end and move your decimal 2 places over. So that tells you that your answer is 63 games. Now, that's just one way to solve this. There's really a couple of different ways that you could use to solve this question. So if you do want to use this question as one of your 10, you can if you show me a different method. You can't use the method that I've just done. If you know a different way to get that answer and you'd like to share that with me as one of your 10 questions, feel free to do that. All right, let's look at this one. Question 21 says, Felicity has passed 3 out of the 5 tests that she's taken in math class. If the number of tests she passes stays consistent, it should say, and it doesn't, what would happen if she's taken 10 tests? What would be the pattern there? Well, let's take what we know. Let's circle what we have. We know that we need to use the 3 out of 5, right? And we know that 10 is a number that we should probably look at. Now, let's see here. She's passed 3 out of the 5. So let's just dissect that. If I were to write that as a fraction, it would be 3 over 5. We also know that she's passed 3. And the 5 on the bottom represents the total number of tests that she's had. Now, if we were to write this as a ratio, like you've learned in Module 2, it would be 3 colon 5. Or you could also see it as 3 to 5, or as a fraction like I wrote it. Now it's asking us to find the pattern there to see what would happen if it was 10 tests. So let's make some equivalent fractions here. We know we have 3 over 5. We know that our total would be 10 tests. We know the 10 would have to go on the bottom, which is our denominator, because there's 10 total tests. And then on the top, I'm just going to put an X. And that would represent how many did he pass? How many did she pass? That's like our question mark. So now we're going to look at this and we're going to try to figure out the pattern. Well, let's look. If I started with my 5, remember what we talked about? 5, we're always multiplying to get to the bigger. So 5 times what would give us 10? And we know that that pattern would be like 5 times 2, right? So then we need to do the same on the top. 3 times what would give me my top number? Well, I have to multiply it by 2, right? It has to keep that same pattern, so that would give us a 6. So that tells us here that she's passed 6 out of the 10 tests. And that would be your answer. All right, this is our last one. This is number 25 on your packet. And it says that the tape diagram represents the number of ounces per the number of cakes. And this one, I chose this one because it's a visual, and sometimes we're good with these and sometimes we're not. So I wanted to make sure that you knew how to read it. Now, this one is talking about unit rate. And remember, we learned about unit rates in Module 2. Now, it's also talking about ratios, which remember a ratio compares two things or two items. So when I look here, we're comparing two things. We're comparing our ounces, which it tells us are ounces per cakes. So if you look at this picture that we have here, let's just count and see how many we have. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8 boxes on top, which are our ounces. Now, if we wanted to figure out how many we would need per cake, and there are 8 cakes, we really are taking it and we're splitting it into eighths, right? We're splitting it into eighths because all of these are going to be one cake. So imagine this being a cake, this being a cake, this being a cake. Going all the way down, these are all of our cakes. And we know that together we should have 8 of these, and we do. We have 8 of these green circles. Now this question is asking about unit rates. So when we look at this picture, unit rate is always per 1. So that tells me right away that the answer cannot be A and it cannot be B because it's per 1. So it has to be C or D. Now when I look at this, I'm looking at how much is it per 1 cake. So 1 cake would be 20 ounces. So our answer should be C. And that's because we can see here that we have the 20 on the very top right here.
Now that you've watched the video, you're ready to take your quiz. Now it's your chance to show me what you know. Please be sure to give yourself about 30 minutes to complete the online quiz. Remember, you can use your notes that you took from the semester as well as the notes that you took while you were watching the video. Also remember to write down your work on a sheet of paper as you work through your online quiz. This is really important because if you miss a question and you think you did it correctly, you can always send me a picture of your work so we can take a look at it and see where you made an error. Remember that you can only take this online quiz once, so please be sure that you take your time and that you give yourself enough time to complete it. The online quiz is worth 20 points. It's your enrichment assignment, and it has 10 math questions that are 6th grade standard. They're standards from the 6th grade. There's 2 questions that are actually from this video, so if you watched the video and took notes, those questions should be relatively easy. And then there's a reflection question that I really want you to respond to, and that will also be worth some points towards your online quiz. Good luck on your quiz, and call me or email me or text me if you have any questions.